Welcome. It's episode 22 of Critical Listening. My name is Max Alper.
And I'm Liz Pelly. And for episode 22, we are really excited to be speaking with songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer, and curator Taja Cheek on the brink of her group Lorraine's fourth record, Fata Morgana, which is out August 14th on Mexican Summer. The label describes this record as, quote, an unflinching reckoning with self-doubt, belonging, and alienation, crafted around a single question. How do you grow in a world not meant for you to thrive in? Taja Cheek is a lifelong New Yorker with roots in underground cultural organizing and the institutional art world alike. And in addition to her work as musician, Cheek is also currently the artistic director at Performance Space New York. We were super excited to talk to Taja both about the record, but also to do the second installment of our Listening Habits series. So at the top of the show, we dive into the new record a bit. And then in the second half, we're talking to Taja about how she discovers new music, her daily listening habits, and things like that.
Yeah, and there's certainly some surprises in there as far as how to discover new things. Taja's a trusted curator and loves to get into the details as far as like how to curate and to have some really great advice as both, for musicians as well as just music lovers and curators of various mediums.
For me, that was sort of like a highlight. It was like hearing about how Taja both like listens to and looks for new music in like artist mode and also then in curator mode too. That was cool to get to talk about. Max also goes way back with Taja, playing music together in the DIY and noise scenes, running a house show venue together, as you talk about. And we should note that, well, actually, two things. So there was an extended section of the show where Max and Taja really kind of like went back in time and talked a bit about the house show venue that they used to run together, which will be a bonus segment. So if you want to listen to that, head over to Patreon. And then something else we should note is that since the last time we recorded an episode, we announced that Critical Listening is going to be doing a live episode taping at Unsound in Poland in October.
Right.
And Lorraine, we didn't even talk about this. Lorraine,
We didn't even talk about it.
Going to be playing at Unsound, so that is exciting.
That's right. Yes. See you in Poland. See you in Poland, Taja. It's on site, Taja, in Poland. We'll share some kielbasas. Not you. We'll get a vegetarian kielbasa for you, but me and Taja will have a kielbasa.
I'll get some good vegan pierogies there.
That's right. Oh yeah, pierogies. Come on, that's super vegan. Awesome. Well, yeah. So absolutely sign up at patreon.com/critical listening if you want to hear our little bonus segment on true DIY origins of Taja's musical projects and curatorial projects. But yeah, should we just hop into our main convo?
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks again to Taja for joining us. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, y'all.
We have two sets of questions for you, Taja. We're really excited to ask a few questions about your new record. And then we have some questions for our segment on listening habits about how you listen to music on a daily basis. To get into the record, though, I wanted to ask you a follow-up question, actually, regarding something that we've previously talked about. So almost 3 years ago, which is very wild to say, but almost 3 years ago, we sat down for a conversation to chat for Mood Machine, which I remain grateful for. And ever since that conversation, I have constantly been referencing something that you said in that interview, which is you said, quote, "The music industry has long treated audiences like they're kind of dumb." I was wondering if you could articulate the ways in which Lorraine on this record and in your previous records tries to push back against that, like tries to challenge the listener, and what it means to you as a musician to challenge listeners.
Ooh, Yeah. I mean, I think actually people have broad music tastes, generally speaking. I don't think people listen to music in the ways that streaming categorizes music, if that makes sense. And so I really, at the end of the day, I think people like listening to things that resonate with them and make them feel something. And for me, uh, yeah, I like to also operate in that way as an artist, and so I try to pull from all the different like references and interests that I have when I'm creating. And for me, that's also kind of a political position, just kind of understanding the way that the media tends to try to categorize things so that they can be more easily consumed. And I'm not really interested in that. So like the whole project in a way, like the way that I think about music is thinking about that context of how it will be distributed. And I wanted to also kind of prove to myself that it could work and that people would follow me there, and that if I made a kind of thrashy track and an R&B track that on the same record that people would follow me there, and I think they will, and they have so far, which has been really amazing to I feel like I really have created a career on my own terms in a way, which feels really great. There are people that are like listening and care. And that, I don't know, that makes me feel good. And I hope that more people can also do that. But I think there's sometimes people feel a pressure to fit in a particular way or to do things the way the industry tells you to. And I feel like that's such a missed opportunity for people just creating the things they want to create and expressing themselves in the most full way, which I feel like ultimately will yield the best music.
Mhm. I mean, why do you think we've gotten to a point where so many like voices in music think that people don't have the capacity for complexity? Because I feel like this comes through in music, but also in publishing, in journalism. Like we're always being pressured to like think about the generalist audience.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, looking at the state of the country and the state of education in the country and the state of media in the country, that also kind of makes sense on some level. But I feel like the answer to that isn't to just dumb everything down. I think people still have a capacity to understand. And ultimately, if you're communicating clearly, like you can communicate nuanced ideas clearly and simply in a way that everybody can understand them. And that's a real skill. And I think that ultimately yields the best writing and the best work and the best criticism anyway. But we've gotten stuck in a kind of clickbaity half reading culture that doesn't really serve anyone. But I really still believe that people have the capacity for more than that and ultimately
Yeah.
want more than that.
Yeah, it's like being presented to us as a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you said, you know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, like the state of things right now, but also like the way that things are being presented, like even in just music or in journalism, even like, it's like everything's becoming content because it's more palatable or whatnot. But that's just powers that be are enforcing that. We can refuse that and it prove them wrong. Feel like it's like the anti-influencer movement is happening right now, and musicians are absolutely the influencerification of musicians just as much as journalists, just as much as any other field. I feel like it's a good time to reject that.
Mm.
It's a really great opportunity. For me, it feels like a little bit of a double-edged sword because I really truly hate social media and I'm pretty vocal about how much I hate it.
Mhm.
And I've resisted using it for so long. But in this cycle, I'm also like trying to just communicate more what I'm doing online. And I've also found that I'm able to just reach people and people know more about what's happening and can support the project better. So I feel like there's also kind of like there are lines where sometimes you can just communicate what's happening and not make it really manufactured or fake. Um, and so I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a way that feels right for me.
Yeah, I mean, we like posting. We like the internet. It's just like we could make it could be better, you know?
I hate posting,
All
but
right, fine. I like
Yeah,
posting.
I also hate posting.
Fine. Oh my God.
but
I
I'm
love to
glad
post.
I'm glad you like it though, Max.
Thank you so much. Well, I want to talk about music. On Fata Morgana, some of the tracks actually began as sketches from up to a decade ago. And in my experience, and as a teacher and stuff, a lot of musicians have this sort of issue of letting decades worth of these demos and sketches just kind of sit on the hard drive. And oftentimes, the further time moves on, the less affinity you might have for unreleased or unfinished material. It just doesn't feel like you anymore. So did it feel like you were confronting a former musical self when going back to some of these sketches? It's like time traveling. It's like the merging of two Tajas across the plane of time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I operate under the assumption that there are no bad musical ideas. It's just a matter of finding the right approach that works at that time. And so I kind of obsessively save everything. I have things that I wrote in college. I have ideas that I have from high school even, and it's all just sitting there waiting for the right moment. And so when I'm writing music, I tend to bounce around a lot. If I feel
Mm,
like I'm stuck on an idea, I'll try to just write something else and just move on to something else and just leave what I'm doing for the moment where I feel inspired to revisit it. And sometimes that's 10 years later. And sometimes I'll check in within that period of 10 years. I'm like, do I want to work on this? And then the answer is no. And I'll move on
right.
to something else. And then yeah, sometimes I'll find things and the moment is just right to work on it, and it does feel a little bit like visiting a past self, but it's also really nice for me because I feel like when I was younger, I was more fearless and more bold and just had a perspective that I am always trying to go back to or trying to channel that energy. So it's a way of kind of reminding myself where I started and
Yeah.
the spirit that I started writing music with went before it became a career, when it was just something that felt like an impulse and a love. So it's also really nice. It keeps me grounded that yeah, and it feels good to, listen to something I made in high school and to feel good about it. Even if it's
Right.
kind of corny and weird, there's
No,
something beautiful about it that I love, and I love that person.
absolutely. I'm always saying like you should be the first person to be stoked about your own music, right? And the fact that you can look back on something, even just a voice memo demo of a melody or something and be like, damn, like I really was cooking here. Like I should go back to this. That is a good feeling. And that is actually it's very encouraging. And for those listening in, yeah, don't delete the files, man. Don't make room. Go back, you know?
Go back for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. I also feel like the vulnerability and honesty and sharpness of like teenagers and young people isn't always taken seriously. And there's something really cool about like taking the experiences that you had as a young person seriously enough to revisit them as an adult and be like, actually, this former version of me was right.
Yeah, it's so true. Teenagers aren't taken seriously, and it doesn't make sense. I remember being a teenager and feeling frustrated that I wasn't taken seriously, or that I was writing these things that I thought were really cool and I couldn't figure out how to get it outside of my house. So yeah, it is nice. It does feel kind of triumphant in a way where it's like, yeah, kids matter. Kids have voices. They have opinions and ideas that are important and astute and interesting and creative. Yeah.
Would you be willing to share one of the moments on the record that like you pulled from several years ago into Fata Morgana?
Yeah, Solar Cycle is actually a really old song.
Mm.
I don't remember exactly when I wrote it, but it was definitely a long time ago. And I remember the moment of pulling up the file, and it was pretty bare bones. It was just a weird guitar and a vocal, and the whole structure of the song was there already. And there was some hint of what the treatment of the song would be. And I didn't know what to do with that for years and years and years. And I remember sitting in my basement, just like looking at the looking at the files and having a eureka moment and saying like, actually, I think it's time. I think I know exactly what to do with this.
That's amazing.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing too, because that song feels so like 2026 to me. Just like the exhaustion and
Yes.
malaise and just like
Also just like genre agnostic, like this, and as someone that's listened to all your work too, like this, there's eclecticism abound on this one, even compared, and you've always had eclectic taste, but like dynamically, where you are, if you are keeping someone at ease on one track, you're immediately like taking a risk and like jolting them out of it aggressively with the next. Like I'm going to bring it to 11 on one of these. This is the loudest I've heard of
Loud.
Lorraine. Yeah.
Mhm. It's very loud. I remember recording those guitars, and I was working with my collaborators, Andrew Lappin and Ben Chapiteau Katz, and they put me in a room to just play a guitar, and the outro was so loud that I just remember sitting there with like earplugs because we were playing out of like a bunch of different amps at once, and it was so loud.
Sometimes you got to do it.
Mhm. Well, the third question I had written down about the record actually is about that very moment at the end of Solace Cycle, because it's such an incredible moment on the album, very metal. It also really sounds like an exorcism of sorts is happening. And I was wondering, when you play that song, like, what does it feel like is being released?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's me kind of grappling with my own mental health issues, and me like being frustrated with myself or the way that I treat certain situations, and just kind of like also me looking out at the world and just feeling, just utter anguish over everything that's happening everywhere. And so it's a lot of that. It's a lot of like releasing a lot of feelings about myself that I want to shed or like evolve and grow from, and me just feeling helpless sometimes when I read what's left of the news and see the way the planet is being destroyed, and seeing genocides play out across the world. It's really, yeah, it's really fucked up, and it's my way of just releasing that in some way.
Yeah, we literally talked about pressure release valve on here, but I feel like there's like moments of even instrumental sort of primal scream on the like literal like therapeutic practice of that, and maybe in the literal sense as well, some screaming. But yeah, I feel like there's this like liberational sort of quality of noise that you and I have probably discussed at length casually. But this might be one of the more prominent examples of it in with the Lorraine project.
My childhood was surrounded by an interest in noise and going to noise shows and playing noise. um, and I feel like that wasn't really represented in the project as much. And I wanted to make sure that that part of me also had some kind of visibility. But I also remember I have this memory, Max, of when Trump was first elected, and we
Oh
were
my
thinking
God.
about doing that like noise jam together, which I
We
still think
did.
we should
No,
do.
we did. We did.
It happened. I forgot.
Taja. Taja. Yes, hold on. Hold on. I have to find it. Noise Therapy Communion Catharsis. This was recorded to VHS and then ripped audio only.
I think we should redo this, Max, because sometimes when I'm just walking down the street, I I just want to like yell and throw things because it's like, what is even going on right now?
100%.
Like I think about like the Mitch McConnell situation right now. I just want to like fucking go crazy. It's like, and sometimes I just wonder, especially in the musical landscape, I'm like, how are we not like freaking out more?
Yep. Yep.
Like all of like feels like the most dominant sound in music. This isn't like, from any kind of like true critic standpoint, but it seems like there's a lot of music that sort of like sounds like elevator music, or is meant to placate, or is like sort of like really calm, or like talking about getting married and settling down. And it's so bizarre to me. It's like, why aren't we freaking out?
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
aren't we just like screaming and yelling and doing weird shit? Like, that is what this moment calls for.
So we have this. I don't know if Taj, if you listened to the Wendy Eisenberg episode, we're starting to create a sort of guest artist conversation where we discuss listening habits, what it means to be a listener. How do you find music just materially? How do you discover things? Because this is unfortunately maybe more obvious for people like of our age, but for younger people, becoming harder and harder to find alternatives beyond algorithmic feeds and the places that are serving you the soft slop, human made or otherwise. And you know, we want to we're trying to jolt people out here.
Taja, we're wondering if you could start the listening habits portion of this interview by just telling us a little bit about your daily listening habits. When do you often listen to music for the first time in a day?
Ooh, usually I would say on the train, or sometimes if I'm getting ready for work. But um yeah, I it's hard for me to be on a train without having some kind of music on. It is very difficult for me, and it's always been very difficult for me.
A real New Yorker.
Is there anything you've been listening to on the train lately?
Lately, honestly, I've been listening to my own demos.
I love it.
Because
I love it.
I'm already working on a new record. So I'm just like, I haven't been listening to so much other music, but I will say that I'm a huge proponent of Shazamming. And sometimes it's really distracting for me to be in public because I just pay attention to what's happening around me a lot. And so I obsessively Shazam music so I can just understand what it is and to look it up later and to have like a catalog of all of these things that I listen to and then kind of read about the artist, and then I see what, who their friends were and who they collaborated with and how they made work. And that is kind of my primary music discovery system, which is really awesome because I get to just really understand what's happening in public. Or if I'm watching a show or watching any movie, I will Shazam throughout the whole thing so I understand what everything is, who's making what. But it also gives me more awareness of what my landscape is from an audio perspective, like what people are listening to. If there's a car driving by and they're playing something interesting, I'll Shazam that and I'll know like what songs are happening in the neighborhood. Also, I don't know, it has put me more in touch with uh my yeah, what's happening in the world in a cool way, and gives me fun things to look up later when I have a lot of time and to dig deeper and do research.
Mhm. Public
I'm just imagining like walking to the bodega and telling Ben or whatever, I'm gonna be back in 10, and it's like 45 minutes later. It's like I heard like three cars that I had to like follow to Shazam whatever it was that they were playing. I jumped into
You're
traffic in front
like,
of a
I'm on a
bus.
sound walk, sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
there's a lot of surprising things, or like, I if I'm like bringing gear from one place to another, and I'm in a car and someone's listening to something I haven't heard before. I have a lot of interesting conversations with taxi drivers, cab drivers all the time in general, but especially about music. I'll like ask them what's playing sometimes, and I'm like, oh, like who is this artist? What do you like listening to? And a lot of times it's music from where they're from. So I also get an insight into, yeah, other music in other parts of the world that I know nothing about.
I feel like public space, especially living in a city, it gets you outside of a filter bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And yeah, it really, really does. And I get exposed to all of these things I would never know about ever. Or watching TV from other countries also
Mhm.
does that. And I'll Shazam the music that's in those shows too.
That's deep cuts. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, it's been really It's been really interesting.
So could you walk us a little bit more through like a day? So like you talked about listening to music on the train. Are there any other like points in the day where you often find yourself listening to music in a typical day for you?
Hmm. It's usually kind of a way of starting my day. I'm pretty boring these days. I've been trying to um, train myself out of how do I put this? I think a lot of digital tools have changed the way that I think about music, and in particular, the way that I think about the voice.
Mm.
I think about Melodyne in particular, which is a tool I use, but one that I feel like is sometimes used too much.
Can you explain what that is actually?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So Melodyne is a tool that can change, like alter the pitch and the timing of mostly vocals, but I've used it on other instruments as well. So if something is like, quote unquote out of tune, you
Mhm.
can tune it, or if something is a little early or a little late, you can adjust it slightly. I've also used it on like a bass when I didn't like the note I played and I actually wanted to play another note. So it's a good way of adjusting for things you might not like after the fact. Um, but it's used a lot in pop music in particular, and sometimes, you know, very, very famous pop stars will just like melodyne every single,
Everything. Yeah.
yeah, every single syllable of a word, so that there's a very particular sense of pitch that is really thinking about like, like just the purest version of a pitch, like right in the center, quote unquote. And so I wanted to like listen to a lot of older music in from like the 70s and 80s and even a little bit of the 90s, just to understand what vocals used to sound like, and reacquainting myself with a different form of pitch. And I remember listening to like Shaka Khan and Whitney Houston, like, iconic vocalists, incredibly technical, just very recognizable, incredible. They're obviously undeniably amazing vocalists, but they don't sound auto-tuned. They sound like real people, and their sense of pitch is alive and real. And that was really helpful for me to just kind of recalibrate how I thought about how I was using that tool. And I don't really use it like overuse it in any way, um, but just the way that I was listening, and it sounds so different from anything that you listen to now. And so I've been trying to train myself out of, train my ear differently. So I've been sort of mostly just listening to older music in the morning,
Mm.
so that I'm not inundated with this like super polished, super edited melodined vocal thing.
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's like I would not have taken you at knowing your work as a Melodyne user, just as a music tech like tool, like it, yeah, like it is used on everything on what we would call top 40 for that, like it's advanced auto tune in layman's terms, right? But like to the nth degree of being able to nudge something or move something in time and pitch. Um, but from vocalist to vocalist here, I love your vibrato, and it's not like and it's a signature Lorraine vibrato, and that in particular, that's a hard thing to melodyne, So I was
It
very
is.
shocked to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just about, none of my records really are like a bunch of people playing in a room. It's like so not that. I spend a lot of time trying to make it sound like that, but it's not. It's like and Ben and Andrew meticulously one by one layering instruments with a lot of intention. And so yeah, it's like the same with vocals, where I'm like, oh, I wish I could have just like, scooped in this very particular way. It's like really like we're using the studio as an instrument and as a tool every step of the way. And Melodyne is a part of that. Um, yeah. And sometimes and it sort of made me realize that like pitch is so relative. Like sometimes like being more right t- technically is doesn't actually sound
Is
better.
wrong. Being more right is
Sometimes
wrong.
it doesn't sound better, or sometimes being more on time isn't right. Or, it's sort of like the idea of like what is technically correct is really malleable and really situational. And that's really what being in a studio has taught me and kind of proved to me. And the same thing goes with Melodyne. It's like, even if I'm singing something correctly, sometimes it sounds better if it's a little sharper or a little
Mhm.
flatter, or like, yeah. So it's not always like making it perfect. It's like making it specific to what you're hearing.
Just to get us a little back into your daily listening habits, are there any like places in your home where you listen to music, or any other like locations that you associate with listening?
To me, it's usually a way of like calming myself down. Like I found that I actually sometimes I tend to kind of listen to music before practicing, which I actually hadn't thought about until just now. Like usually it'll be like a little moment of listening to something to just kind of calm me down or get me into a different state before I rehearse my own music. I feel like I do a lot of listening also just like preparing for other people's um gigs when I'm playing in their bands and stuff too, which is like honestly a big part of my listening habits, but it also allows me to listen differently and is really amazing. I feel like a lot of musicians, if they're like rehearsing for a gig, they're just so deep into so deep into someone else's music in a different kind of way. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of music also. I've been listening to this record kind of obsessively. Well, these records by this artist Clark in the Community that was released on Dropbox. So, or I don't know if it was released on Dropbox, but it like is on a Dropbox. And I've tried to figure out other ways of listening to it, and it's kind of hard to find. So, I've just like saved them on my Dropbox and I listen to them in the
Yeah.
morning sometimes.
How did you find it?
I honestly don't remember how I found it at all. But
Cool.
he's kind of a mysterious
I love that.
person and no one really knows where they are. And it doesn't really exist on streaming. It doesn't really exist on some of it is on YouTube, but I made a post I think on Instagram just about how much I love them, and someone was like, "Oh, did you know that you can listen to it all here?" And it's helpful.
That is amazing. I would love to know just like how you literally, like what tools you use to literally listen to music, whether it be apps or devices or platforms like Dropbox. I don't know if you're up doing that often. I mean, they're probably
I am
easier ways.
honestly.
Okay, all
I listen to
right. But
music
yeah,
on
tell
Dropbox
us.
quite a lot.
Please tell us. Yeah, what is your list of your means of consuming?
I listen to music on Dropbox a lot. I got rid of Spotify. I don't remember how long ago. Um, but I was really worried at that time because I was like, how will I listen to things? Or like, what are there other ways? And then there just are. Um,
Yes.
I I I buy a lot of music on Bandcamp, especially if I'm making um mixes. I tend to just like buy the music, so I'll just have it. um, and that is like a big thing for me. Um, what else? Honestly, I use a lot of YouTube. I listen to a lot of music on YouTube, just because there's a lot of material there. Um,
It's true.
a lot of Shazam,
A lot of
a lot of like
Shazam stuff.
a lot of Shazam, honestly, because I will go back to things that I Shazammed, like weeks and months ago to remember where I was in a particular moment or a feeling I had or like wanting to be reacquainted with something. And so I'll listen to it on the Shazam app so I can remember what the song was, so I can go back and do more research if I wanted to. Um, I don't listen to a lot of physical media right now, which makes me sad, but it's just because I haven't really set up my station yet. And my record player broke. So
Oh,
so and like there's like all kinds of technical issues, but like once that's going, I'm so excited to listen to physical media again. I have a bunch of cassette tapes and CDs from like growing up and also from my college radio station. So I'm like really eager to listen to it. And I have this really amazing Radio Shack like cassette player that I love, and it just stares at me every day. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to get you up and running. I love you so much.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
When you had mentioned purchasing on Bandcamp too for making making mixes and stuff, I'm assuming you mean like downloading digital albums in that case. How do you organize your files? What are you playing it on? Are you importing it into
Ooh.
iTunes? Do you just have it on a hard drive and then make mixes out of it, just dragging it into a DAW to blend it with other stuff? How does that work?
I just drag it straight into a DAW.
Wow.
And I feel like my listening habits are so weird now that I'm thinking about it. I'll listen to music more often, just sort of using the preview function on my computer than I will using iTunes. I just don't like iTunes very much. Something about the interface is like off-putting to me. And so I will usually just listen to things on preview. And the great thing about Dropbox is that it'll automatically go to the next song. So it's easier to use to me than iTunes. This is so funny. I never thought about this until now.
I am loving this. Liz, this is two times in a row with
Well,
Wendy too of just like the most like seemingly difficult ways to access MP3s. Wendy
well,
would load up albums at a time into VLC player and then take them off and like they're putting on a record. Like they would load up a folder, take it off, load up another folder for the next record.
oh,
And I'm like, okay. Like
Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems also like listening to music in um, something like Dropbox maybe also is a result of just being a person who is like in the music scene and maybe getting links from
right.
people often of their unreleased records.
yes, it is also
Totally.
it is also that. And I do get records from people that way.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Any good unreleased records that you've been
You want to
listening
leak? You want to
to?
leak some files?
No.
I have nothing to leak. I contributed to my friend Jasper Sloss and Malone One's record,
Cool.
and have been listening to that because it's great. But yeah,
Amazing.
it right now.
Cool. Yeah, I find that like, I don't know, just like people sending demos, people sending like records they're working on. That tends to
So
sometimes be
true.
like the most like chaotic stuff. And I know there's always like a million people like with new apps that are gonna like completely solve this for everyone. Like I feel like
Yes.
I know that they're out there or whatever, but sometimes you just have to listen in the chaos.
Sometimes you have to listen in the chaos. I've been using Untitles has been really helpful, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, and have started using that, and I like that platform because it's very simple and easy to use.
I call those platforms like the digital dub plate platforms because you're getting like exclusive MP3 or exclusive streaming playlist links that only you or
Mm,
a certain amount, as if it's like a limited run dub plate only for this DJ at this
yeah.
sound system, and it feels very communal in a like friendship way. Like the only reason you have access to this link is because I personally know you and want you to hear this.
Yeah.
Feels so much more personal. Again, the internet can be used for good, you know?
Mhm.
It can and should.
So, we'd love to know about how you learn about new and new to you music. You talked about Shazam, but are there any other sources you turn to or methods that you sort of have for learning about new stuff?
I think honestly, just other people. I think that's probably the most reliable source for me, is if I'm being honest and really thinking about it, is talking to other artists, talking to other curators, talking to people that I respect, and like from afar. That's really it. Sometimes I'll look at venues and see who's playing in different parts of the world. to get a better sense of, what that landscape is like, but it's really just person to person. I read music journalism sometimes, very rarely. But yeah, I especially like Bandcamp Daily, and there's so many different writers, so it's really nice to kind of get like a lot of different perspectives. Yeah, I think that's kind of mostly it, but it's really mostly Shazam and other people. Because then I can go on internet tangents, if I'm like looking up some
Right.
artists that I found in a movie, then I look at their discography and then I see, oh, this producer also worked on this record, and then I listen to that record, and it's just like it's a way of opening up new doors that I wouldn't open up on my own, and it makes me feel connected to a place because it all comes from like where I physically was at a particular time.
What you said about other people too, I mean, I feel like something that can be so helpful is just like, especially in music, you're constantly around other people. There's so many things that people default to. It's just like small talk, like, how are you doing? How is your tour? It's just like asking someone like, what have you been listening to lately is
Yeah,
like sometimes such a more interesting question.
yeah, it really is. And you can just learn so much from that, and just like getting recommendations from people that you care about. They're probably listening to
Mhm.
something that you would like.
And then like when someone actually listens to something that you recommended and then like follows up with you and is like, I listened to that record you told me about, like I think
Yeah.
that is can be really meaningful.
I learned about Beverly Glenn Copeland's music because Kip Malone texted me and was just like, I think you would like this. I don't even know if he had words. I think he
Right.
just like texted it to me. I don't know. It was something very short, and it changed my life. Uh,
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
And a lot of people's
Yeah,
lives,
I just
I
became
think.
obsessed, and then ended up on this
Mhm.
whole journey just because someone texted me a recommendation of music that they thought was amazing.
And you were like very responsible in a lot of played a large part, I would say, in Beverly Glenn Copeland's like second career, like, resurgence in popularity with people our age.
Yeah, that's the whole reason I know about Glenn's music.
Kip Malone, the first person to
And-
perform at 49 Shade, by the way.
Was he the first?
oh,
He was the first show we had. Yeah.
Really? I didn't even realize that was the first. That's so funny.
That's how we were serious, starting off with a bang.
you said that that one music recommendation changed your life. Can you talk about how it changed your life?
I but just like when I get certain recommendations from certain people, I know that it's something I should really pay attention to. And I remember, I think I was just like in my bed texting, and I got that text message, and I just like, I don't even remember how I listened to, I can't remember how the link was sent. I can probably like search in my message history. And I remember listening to it, and I just heard the first note, and I just started like tearing up, and I just felt like it's hard to explain, but it was a very physical reaction where I just like couldn't. I felt excited, and I felt so many different emotions at once, and I was like mad that I didn't know about this earlier, and I was mad that he wasn't more famous. And I just had all of these reactions, and um yeah, I just kept listening, and I fell in love with the music, and I think I just like Googled the booking agent, and I wrote to them, and I sort of like had been writing and deleting a message to the agent um over and over again. I finally was just like, you know what, I should just do this. And so I did, and then ended up being connected with Glenn, and Glenn wasn't gonna travel to the US out of fear. um, and hadn't been living in the US for a while. And we just kind of went back and forth, and we would Skype. And yeah. And then I think we had to kind of, between all of us, all the people that were organizing this day, we were calling it Glen Fest or something. And I talked to a bunch of filmmakers that have been making these films about Glen's work in Canada, and was getting information from them about Glenn, and I don't know, it became this whole celebration. And then we like ended up organizing the show. It was like the first show that Glenn had played in the US ever. And um yeah, I don't know. It just kind of it changed me because the music changed me, but it also something about the simplicity of just getting this text message and that spurring this whole like deeply meaningful project, like that felt really profound to me. And yeah, and also just seeing how Glenn has just blossomed in so many ways and how so many people have also just the music has reached so many more people um was also deeply meaningful. Just on so many levels, I just felt like deeply changed by this this one text message recommendation. But yeah, the music is kind of at the center of it. I just love it.
I love it because I think it's so important to remember the that one recommendation you make to someone, one text you someone like could have that impact on them, you know, like you never know what impact recommending someone a piece of music will have on
Life
them.
changing.
Would you
Yeah.
would you say that as a curator, like your work is impacted by just like the same listening habits that you have as an artist, or is there like a specific mode you go into when you're like, I'm in curator mode for listening?
That's really interesting. I feel like when honestly, I feel like me being in curator mode helps nourish the other parts of me because I end up being way more curious and more open to new ideas. And sometimes I feel like when I'm in my artist self, I try to not take in as much as I can so that I can, channel what's inside of me. And so it's kind of like a not a battle, but it's like finding a balance in some way between those two ways of thinking. But when I'm in curator mode, I'm just like talking to a lot of people and just asking them a lot of questions and reading a lot and listening to a lot and just kind of intaking a lot of material, and usually like traveling some and just like seeing as much as I can and just my eyes are like this, which is really great and really fun. And yeah, reminds me again of just like being a kid. And I would when I was a kid, I would listen to music on the radio a lot, and I would listen to satellite radio a lot, and and I would read a lot about music, and I would just take any spare piece of paper I had, and I would just jot down the names of artists and the names of albums and labels and literally anything so I could look it up later. And it was just kind of like a manic thing. I would just kind of like run and like grab things and just write it down and just to make sure I had it and I had all this information to look it up later. And it kind of reminds me of that. Like it's kind of like that was like the beginnings of my curator brain or something.
I think for like everyone, it can be so fruitful to just have something that you're curating for, whether it is like a mix you make every quarter or every month, or just like making mixes for friends or having a radio show. It really
Yeah,
puts you in a different headspace about music.
it does. I always, whenever someone asks me to make a mix, I learn about so much more music because I'm just like searching. I'm searching, I'm trying to find the right things, and I'm like going back to things I've listened to or notes that I have. And it's so, I like that one period of like a couple of days where I'm making that mix. I learn about more music than I do like at any other point.
Incredible. To bring this all to a close, what does it mean to you to be a critical listener? This is the big question we want to ask everybody.
Ooh. So I really believe that just saying if you like or don't like something is not actually descriptive and is not actually helpful and doesn't say very much. And that to be a critical listener is to take music and to put it in its context and to understand what it's doing. And that's way more interesting. And music that I really hate sometimes, I'm still drawn to because it's making me feel something or it's making me think a different way or I'm exposed to a new community or whatever. And there's something about just your personal preferences that feels deeply boring. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what a lot of music journalism and conversations around music has been reduced to. But there's so much more to excavate and do. And I feel like good critics, and being a critical listener means like unearthing that. And that's really, really important. And it's an incredible skill. And it's something that we all need, is just more people that can help us process not only the music we listen to, but the moment we're in and what we're doing. And there's a lot of like, online pundits these days, but I think to be able to do it in a way that feels egoless and is puts community at a center and just deeply just trying to understand what's happening, like there isn't so much of that.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm always talking about this yin and yang between like the content of the work and the context of the work. And that's not just like the person making it and why they make it, but also like the context of you listening to it, why you might like or dislike the content of the work, just sonically, musically. This isn't my cup of tea, genre wise or whatever, but the context in which you are discovering it.
The work of critics is, like you said, Taja, to expand context. It's not about like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, which, like you said, is so much of what ends up happening. Even just like when criticism becomes just like, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this. That also is just thumbs up, jump, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And, that's not like a very critical perspective either.
I really deeply believe the music like you deeply don't like can really, I don't know, it can reveal some really interesting things, and that's also worthy of writing about. Like you don't have to like it. Also, as a curator, I feel like this sometimes feels controversial, but like I don't think you always have to program the thing you like. It's kind of not about you. It's about it's about the place and the artists and the communities that you're bringing in and the audience that want something. Like it's really like, who cares if you like something or not?
That is super interesting.
That's a bar. That's a bar right there. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Taja.
This is really fun. I really do want to do Noise Fest Part 2. I forgot that it actually happened. That's so crazy.
Noise Therapy Communion Catharsis 10-year anniversary. You say the word. Your new basement.
My new basement.
Or in the financial district.
Yo, that's right.
That would be awesome.
Truth to power right there. Truth through noise.
That would be so cool.
All right. Well, we're going to, to be continued on that, but it's happening. Let everybody listening to this be our witness. It's happening. Thank you so much, Taja. Fata Morgana, out now if you're listening to this on Mexican Summer. Taja Cheek, leader of Lorraine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Taja.
Thank you for tuning into the Critical Listening Podcast. The show was written and created by Liz Pelly and Max Alper, and produced and engineered by Nick Zanka. That's me. You can support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/criticallistening, where you'll have early access to episodes before they hit the public platforms, as well as our Discord community. Our theme song is the track Talk to Me by the band Eraser, and this episode featured tracks from Lorraine's new album Fata Morgana, out now on Mexican Summer.